All right. You are listening to the Practical Tactical Penguin podcast. I am the Gun Penguin.
Oh, is that the official name now? I love it.
Yeah, it's so terrible.
My name is John. I'm the Practical Tactical Minimalist.
And we are going to... I don't know why I said we were going to. I'll cut that
out. You should leave it in.
Okay. We're gonna walk you through some recent firearms news. We're going to discuss a few products that we are incredibly passionate about, and probably bullshit as we always do, and get horrifically sidetracked.
Yeah, sidetrack is for sure. We probably will not make it very far down the main path, but we will have a heck of an adventure, and we're just faking it till we make it. So.
That's right. Well, what's new in your life? What have you been up to lately?
Pretty heavily invested in Revolvers at this point, giving it a go. And it's been an experiment because it's never even been on my horizon up until very recently. I got that snubby bug, and I've been working really hard because it's, a different frame of mind and everything.
Sure.
The mechanics are different. It feels like learning again, which is cool because it's been a while since I felt not super comfortable with the platform. So I've been working a lot on that, trying to wrap it up before the new year. And because the new year I have my single stack experiment with the P365 all ready to go. So that's pretty much what's been on my end. How about you?
For me, it has been just Beretta City, as it always is. I've been shooting my Beretta 81 a lot, and I recently tracked down a Beretta ARX, which is a gun I've been trying to locate for a while. And They were very common when they were on closeout, and for whatever reason, I just didn't pick one up at the time, but I found a great used one that only had like 100 rounds through it, so I've been spending a lot of time with that gun.
That was a fantastic deal, and that's like a unicorn as well, because I don't think I've ever seen one in person. They have a 22 variant, right? I'm pretty sure that's the one I've seen.
But the 22 is made by Umarex and is of very questionable quality, like all Umarex products.
Perfectly adequate for a BB gun.
Right. I never will forget the first time that I saw, and this was just the first time of several that I saw a Umarex gun literally come apart during a range session in someone's hands. I was at the range, I heard this lady next to me shriek, and I said, "Ma'am, what's the problem?" And she said, "My Walther came apart," and the slide of her P22 had fractured into multiple pieces, revealing the terrible pot metal slide interior with various voids.
That was harrowing, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would have shrieked too. That's really awful. Well, tell me, which revolver did you choose and why?
Let me look up the exact. I have the paper right here, the exact model number, so I get it right. It is the Smith & Wesson M642 Tallow Exclusive Performance Center. That is a mouthful. It's really
beautiful. It's incredibly beautiful. Now, what separates this Performance Center model from the standard 642?
The Performance model is cut for moon clips from the factory, and it includes a few of them, which I thought was, interesting to try out. It has a significantly improved trigger, allegedly. All I heard going into this was how rough the triggers are at first and how you have to break them in. The 642 Performance Center came out of the box super smooth. I would say maybe 8 pounds. I don't have a trigger pull gauge, but it's very smooth, 8 to 10 pounds or so, which I've heard some go as high as 12, 14.
Yeah, so I've shot a lot of the smaller 5-shot Smiths, and the triggers have a serious stacking problem where sort of like midway through travel, I don't know, it feels to me like the spring pressure almost doubles against your finger. It's really, really difficult to shoot that well and fast. And, a lot of the folks buying that gun are maybe not super experienced shooters, and that's not doing them any favors. You'll see a serious trigger jerk watching folks who are not accustomed to shooting revolvers shoot a stock Smith 5-shot snubby.
Right, yes. So it was only like a few hundred, it was like $100 more or whatever, and I figured I would just go out of the gate with the Performance Center. It also did not have a Hillary hole, the internal lock, which I was very particular about. I didn't want an internal lock. And,
Sure.
for aesthetic reasons, I guess the fluting in the cylinder is like highlighted or something. I don't know. It's a very attractive piece, I would say, in my opinion. But the main thing was moon clips. I wanted it pre-cut just because I wanted to be able to try all the different facets of reloading and loading, and then also once I felt the trigger, it was maybe even a smidge better than an LCR, and LCRs have fantastic out of the box triggers. So that was my main reasons.
And this one also has the shrouded hammer, right?
Yeah, it's all enclosed. So it's not like, I think it's a 638 where it has like the hood. Yeah, it's double action only. You can't fudge with the hammer.
Which, for what you're doing with the gun, I think is probably a great idea. And so what holster did you choose for this, and why did you choose that holster?
So this one, I got the cheapest one I know works well. It's called the DeSantis Slim Tuck, I want to say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep, I had a lot of experience with them with the 43 and 42, and they work fantastic for the smaller light. I think the 642 is like 13 ounces or something. It is very lightweight. It's one of their airweight models. So with a weapon, a weapon that light, it is totally adequate, and they're like $15 or something on BDU. So that was the main reason behind that choice. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but it's very passable, unlike some of the cheaper nylon, like Uncle Mike clearance bin at your gun store specials. I highly recommend the Slim Tuck for guns you're not sure you're going to carry a lot, or if you don't have a CCW or a CHL and you just want a holster just because. The DeSantis Slim Tuck is one of the best value ones on the market.
That's awesome. Has it been pretty comfortable day to day?
Yeah, see that they sell them for all the different models, like even large ones. Like you can carry around a Glock 34 in one. The problem is it's a single loop, a tuckable loop, and there's no concealment wing or anything. So with heavier guns, it tends to not distribute the weight very well.
I see.
Especially if you're not carrying appendix. I think it's designed to be an appendix holster, but you can kind of cant it if you want. The 642, I've just been carrying appendix tucked under an undershirt, and it's been working fantastic. So the lighter guns I think work better, and the smaller overall dimension, it would work as better as well. I've never tried it with a 19 or something larger than that, but even the 43, or if I carried a 43X in one for a little while, even that fully loaded, it was borderline a little bit too much for that design, in my opinion. But honestly, for 15, I think on BDU they're like $15. On Amazon it's under 20. For under $20, 1 day shipping, I would give it a go if you want a cheap holster. I don't think you'll be able to find one for the 81 though.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to find anything for the 81. That is well, it's funny, now everybody has one, and up to that point it was completely forgotten and overlooked. But
right, so that's maybe a good thing, is that whenever the market gets flooded with something, like I remember maybe 10 years ago, when all the surplus Makarovs started coming in, and they were like, like $200 on classic firearms or JG sales, all of a sudden a bunch of innovation and holsters and stuff started to pop up for them. Maybe the 81's about to have a resurgence.
I hope so. I mean, I know Beretta's been importing magazines again, which is really good. I know because I've loaded up on them. Mm-hmm. And there are holsters around, but there aren't a lot of modern Kydex options. There are a ton of leather options, but not anything that's plastic. And leather's fine. It's great, but
oh, for sure.
I like leather in South Carolina.
Yeah, I like leather better than Kydex, unless you're reholstering a lot. It's more comfortable. It fits the gun better. There's just something about that feel that's better. But if you're like taking a class or something, it doesn't work well. It will look great with your Miami Vice cosplay.
yeah, which is really just my whole thing. But
some people call it cosplay. Some people call it life.
Yeah, for me, it's just that's living. That's leaving the house in the morning. Down here, the leather has a tendency to deform in the summer a little bit. That's the only reason that I tend to steer clear. Is there will be 5 days in a row where the humidity will be 80%, and the leather doesn't like that so much. Kydex is a lot handier.
Well, yeah, it's not just humid; it's really hot too.
Yeah, and then there's that. It's it's 80 degrees. It's not quite 80. I think it's 75 today.
Oh man, yeah, we had an ice storm, so it's like 20 something here.
I'm jealous. Well, I don't know. Should I be jealous?
A lot of old people are going to be falling in the next few days.
Well, the hospitals are going to make bank. What can I say? It's a great day to be a doctor.
And it snowed. It snowed on Halloween, and it was 60 on Christmas. So the environment is totally fine.
Yeah. Nothing to see here. Everything is completely normal. Everything is operating within normal parameters. Yeah. Well, with your revolver, have you found that it is easier to carry than an auto, and if so, why?
My view on revolvers is changing dramatically, and you have so much more experience with them than I do, that you've been walking me through a lot of stuff. But I would have said, excuse me, I would have said even 6 months ago that the revolver guys were crazy because the 5-shot Smith & Wesson, albeit is very light, it is about the same size as the 12+1 SIG P365. I filmed a Black Friday pickup video where I briefly show that, and I will show that in the reviews as well. They're very size inefficient for the firepower you are carrying. So going into it, I did not have a very high... I don't know. I did not have very high hopes for how the experiment was going to turn out, but I will tell you, I don't know how the physics works. Carrying that revolver is probably the most comfortable thing I've ever carried. And I've even carried like Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380, like the little semi-automatic 380, back when they rebranded them to M&Ps.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I don't, oh dude, it was a dumpster fire. I don't know what happened, but that the revolver is so comfortable, and it disappears, man. Especially for its size. It's not tiny, so I don't understand how. I think it's the shape. The human eye, especially with movies and stuff, it's very easy to pick out the 90-degree or close angles of a semi-automatic firearm on someone's hip when they're trying to conceal it. Yeah. I pick people out all the time where you see that little telltale ledge. When their shirt catches funny, or they bend over, or you get that little tail if you're carrying like 3 or 4 o'clock. All the guys that think they're super high speed carrying appendix, I've never once seen someone carry appendix and not immediately known, oh, that dude's wearing carrying appendix. The revolver disappears. I don't understand how. Do you have any insight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just all of the rounded edges. Like every edge is rounded. Even in some, even the butt is rounded. And then if you have a shrouded hammer, there's not even the point from the hammer sticking up. And not only are you going to notice that against your body, because as you said, you're not going to have sharp bits of shit gouging you in your sensitive areas, but
tactical glove handles.
That's right. High speed, lots of drag. Yeah. It's so it keeps the love handles from getting the old pokey, and. And it also, there's nothing for your shirt to catch on. So it looks, it'll look like you have a sort of strange bulge in a place you maybe ought not have a bulge, but it's not going to be easily identifiable as a firearm. Somebody might see it and think, he's got a big cell phone, or, a beeper 15 years ago. I don't know. It's much, as you said, it's just much less easy to pin your eye on what that is, but. There are no sharp corners on a good revolver. Anything that size, any of the Colts, the LCR, the Smiths, they're all perfectly rounded, and I think that goes a long way.
I've been carrying an RMR for so long, I didn't remember how much the rear sight design can poke the crap out of you, depending on the gun. And the P365 XL has such a squared off rear sight because it's that plate that, like, the whole rear sight is a plate that comes off. And that thing, man, especially after carrying the revolver for a bit, even the tiny little P365 is like digging into me if I bend weird. And yeah, you really, I understand. I used to think it was just like an old curmudgeon thing, gun store dude, that swore by, the 357 man stopper and nothing conceals quite like a revolver. It's kind of true, man. I'm really, really coming around to the philosophy of use, the philosophy of carry of a revolver for just, basic crime for the average everyday concealed carrier. I think it's working out really well.
Yeah, I mean it's an overlooked option, especially by our generation. And look, I'm not sitting here telling anybody that you should go out and purchase a 642 over a Glock 19. It's not like that at all. But there are certain clothing styles, certain outfits where the revolver is 100 times easier to conceal than something like a Glock 19. Like my gym clothes, forget about it. It isn't happening. That's not gonna happen.
A lot of the dudes on Instagram and YouTube and stuff, like, that's their job to carry a gun. So a lot of the instructors that carry Glock 17s or Glock 19s, because let's face it, that's pretty much what everyone carries. That's their day-to-day job. They're a firearms trainer, or they're a male gun bunny, or that kind of thing. Where there's some days, some places I go, if I get fired if I'm noticed.
Yeah.
And that's when I think a revolver really shines, is the sweatpants around the house gun, or I'm in a place where I want to be armed, but getting found out could be, of significant lifestyle alteration.
Yeah, yeah.
It's because for 4 years, my concealed carry license is being renewed right now. But so I've hit the 5-year mark. And for about 4 of those years, I carried either a Glock 17 or a Glock 19. And it can be done, but there were some days when I literally had to carry off body, and I hate that. And that's when the revolver would have been perfect. So
yeah.
for sure, we're not saying sell all your semis. In most situations I could think of, I would rather have a Glock 19. Like, sure. in almost everyone, for sure. The technology is better. There's a reason why revolver tech really hasn't changed much in about 100 years, and semi-automatics just keep getting smaller and more reliable. But there's just not. You shouldn't overlook a little snubby, because I think there's a lot of practical uses for one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that we're getting at is that a revolver is a supplement to the semis that you carry often, rather than a replacement. It's another tool that you ought to have access to. Also, another often overlooked tool is a good small blowback gun, because a blowback gun, the operation of it is not going to be disturbed by pressing the barrel up against a human body.
Right.
So it's awesome to have all the Glocks in the world, but they cannot be pressed against a human body. Anything that has a Browning tilting barrel action can be interrupted that way. So you should have a good 5 or 6 shot revolver. I'm really partial to the Colts. I really, really like the Colt detectives and agents, just because you get that extra round.
Well, they're so sexy.
They really are, and they're an alloy frame, so they weigh a little bit more because the cylinder's bigger. But I think we're talking 2 or 3 ounces, and then I really like the blowback Berettas. Again, not as replacements for Glocks. My favorite guns are the Glock 45 and the 43X, but it's good to have access to those other things for certain situations.
If a guy like me, for instance, when did we start talking about this? In June? If a guy like me who has never had any experience with a revolver, or I really have very little experience with a small caliber blowback as well, I think we both share an affinity for the little 25s and 32s.
Oh, man, absolutely.
But if you don't have much experience, and this podcast is like, hey, you know what? I've noticed a lot of people online are starting to get the snubby bug, because it's been so looked down upon that people are finally getting to the point where it's like, hey, that actually kind of makes sense. So a lot of people around the same time, I think it started around Lucky Gunner did a series, and Primary Secondary did a great snubby series. If you have a lot more experience with revolvers in general, but also with snubbies, what would be a good drill, or what do you think that the person should look for if they're dipping their toes into this side of the pool for the first time?
Well, there are a couple of things that you should know up front that are really often overlooked. One, this should not be your first gun that you buy for you or a spouse or
Especially a
anyone
spouse,
in
probably.
your life. Yeah, I mean, just they are awful to shoot if initially, especially with hot, even 38 special, and 38 special plus P is still substantially weaker than 9mm. It's the FUDs will argue about this, but I mean, just look at the numbers. It fucking is. It's a lot weaker. And it has a lot more recoil than it really ought to for a variety of reasons. But so no going into it that it is not going to be pleasant and that you have to push through the unpleasant phase, especially if you're used to shooting autos. For one thing, you're going to have to radically alter your grip. A thumbs forward grip will work, but it is not an effective way to control that kind of gun. It's not effective at all. In fact, the Masad Ayub crush grip is a really good way to control it, as well as thumb wrapped around the wrist. That works really well if you have a small grip that you can't get your pinky all the way on. As far as drills, because you're manipulating a little gun, the two things that you need to work on the most are just drawing it and then reloading it effectively. You're probably not going to have to reload it. Because hopefully, if you're going into a situation where you're afraid you might need more than 5 rounds, for the love of God, don't take that gun. That's a stupid idea.
Yeah, the way I see the philosophy of the revolver is I need to get out of this room as fast as possible. It's not
exactly
tracking down a mass shooter in a mall type deal. So I do carry a reload. I've tried carrying a reload 2 different ways. My philosophy on the reload is once I'm out of the area, I've probably used all 5 rounds. While I'm calling 911, I'll reload, just so I have, not an empty gun. Do you think that's a wise idea, concept, a philosophy for a reload with a revolver? Because there's no way in hell you're doing that under stress.
No, you're not, and we'll talk to you about the different reload methods. But I also want to say as well, on that same note, you need to practice sort of learning to accurately get the 5 rounds out of the gun as quickly as possible. And that's a controversial thing to say, but that's really what that gun is for. That gun is to do its deal, as you said, while you get the fuck out of there. And it's hard to shoot these quickly really well. So I have a drill that I practice where I try to fire at about this pace, which is not quick, but that's going to group really, really well. And then I'll do 2 shots about this fast, which is a little bit faster than Thunder in AC/DC's Thunderstruck. That's a good way to keep track of it. But
you told me AC/DC cadence. So in my head at the range, it's thunder, do 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 thunder, and the range safety officer gives me the stink eye.
yeah, 1 round per second, kid. Yeah.
I had a range safety officer call me a troublemaker the other day.
Wow. Yeah, you're a real bad one, aren't you?
As I don't hit the ceiling.
You should ventilate the ceiling for them further.
Nah, it's already pretty rough.
Yeah, they don't need any help.
No.
Well, so the two ways to reload, of course, are speed strips and speed loaders. I'm partial to speed loaders, but only because I've been using them for years, and to me, it is just like I can do it blindfolded, I can do it in my sleep, but my God, it is hard to learn that initially. And I recently passed a speed loader to someone, and she looked at me like, the fuck do you want me to do with this?
Right. No, okay, so in all honesty, this is a little bit embarrassing, but I got a Safari Land. It's the 5-shot JC7 Comp 1 speed loader. I got a few of them because that's the one that fits the snubby J-frames with the 5 shots. Yeah. And I had to open the little manual thing that comes with it because I had no idea what I was doing. Like, it's not intuitive.
No. It is, even just the act of lining up all of the holes is so fiddly and difficult initially. It's not intuitive. Whereas the speed strips, you pull the thing out of your pocket, you line up 2 at a time, you're done. It's great.
Is there a way over audio? Because I've found that as well, and you've been helping me with a proper index, a way to index the speed loader or the speed strips and get the cylinder in your hand where you you know where it's, oriented. Is there a way over audio you can give a tip on that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, you need to learn a proper reload, because a lot of people are just not reloading their revolvers in the most efficient way. Like, you need to watch the way Jerry Michalik does it. That's in my opinion, that's the right way to do it. So if you haven't seen it before, you actually pass the revolver to your support hand. You're opening it while you're doing this, and then your support hand is pushing the cylinder open and passing through the frame of the gun. So now you're gripping the frame. You're gripping the cylinder open and still, so it's not spinning. It's not going to rotate. If you don't grab onto it, it's going to run away from the speed strip or the speed loader when you're trying to feed rounds into it.
Your offhand or weak hand has the dominance of the cylinder, and is kind of controlling the angles of everything.
Exactly, and you have to have your reload on your right side. So you take your reload out of your right pocket or pouch or whatever you have it in, and then you are going to have your thumb riding high up on the side of the cylinder, your support hand thumb, and you're basically going to have, it's almost like reloading an Uzi or a pistol. Hand is going to find hand. So your thumbs are going to want to find each other, and that's going to very roughly index it. When your thumbs find one another, and so it'll take a little bit of practice to get that lined up, but that'll get you pretty close in a hurry, and you'll eventually be able to do it without even looking at it. Now, with speed strips, is a totally different thing. A good way to do it is to keep your support hand thumb high on the cylinder, and then I don't know if anybody else does this, but then I have my thumb on the back of the speed strip, almost like an auto magazine.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then I use my thumb to find the cylinder and tear them off of the strip. So I don't know how you do it, but that's worked well for me. Although I am way worse with speed strips than I am with the speed loader, because I've only been doing the strips for a year maybe. So
I picked up a tip from Primary Secondary that's been working really well, where you get a speed strip that's bigger than the amount of rounds you need. So I think I have like a 7 or 8 shot speed strip, but that lets you have a space in between. And it makes it so much faster. It's still nowhere near a speed loader, obviously, in my limited skill set, but I found that to be dramatically easier than trying to finagle with such a little space with a 5-shot speed strip.
Yeah, no, that's a really good tip. I'm going to try that out, because I'm still learning with the speed strips. This is new for me.
I've been really enjoying the speed strip, because with our mag carrier that we're going to be reviewing, it carries so flat, it's so light, it's so comfortable. Like, it is such a convenient way to carry, where speed loaders, man, you're going to have people asking what's in your pocket. It looks peculiar. It's like, it looks like a lot of things you probably shouldn't have in your pocket. It is a strange look, and also too, if you have them stuffed in your jeans pocket, people can totally tell it's bullets on a little carousel doodad. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Yep.
So it has been a big week for the ATF, generally fucking up our lives and trying to make life as difficult as possible for gun owners. I'm sure everyone listening to this has seen that there have been several reclassifications, several very prominent reclassifications, the Franklin Reformation and the Fostech Origin. In the case of the Fostech Origin, from what I understand, if you own a Fostech Origin and you are now a felon, and Fostech is luckily taking them back to put 18-inch barrels and stocks on them, but that's really, really fucked up. And I know it's only a specific model of the Origin, the one that was classified as any other weapon or whatever, or just as a firearm. That's right, it's a firearm. That's right. But it's still incredibly problematic. And I mean, not only is that unconstitutional to make someone's property illegal in such a way, especially after declaring that it's completely legal and fine. I think that we all should be worried that pistol braces are next, because we've talked about this in the past. I mostly only have pistol braced guns at this point, and I know you're in kind of a similar situation. What do you think about all this? Are you concerned?
Well, we also have to point out didn't stop at the Fostech origin, unfortunately. We also have the Franklin Armory Reformation.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, that's the other one.
Yeah, it was a smooth-barreled firearm, I guess, because it was not rifled, so it was not a rifle.
Yeah, it has straight rifling that they.
Okay, that's why it had like the little Nerf bullets, football bullets.
Exactly.
So the problem with that one was it had under a 16-inch barrel with a stock. And, vertical, you could put a vertical foregrip on there, which for some reason is a problem. And that would have made it an SBR. So they got around the law by getting an opinion letter from the ATF. And just like with the Fostech origin and with bump stocks, overnight, because of an opinion, you are now a felon. Because you own something that was purchased legally. That is a huge problem because I'm old enough to remember a year ago or 2 years ago when we got the SBA 3 revolutionized the firearms world with an opinion letter stating it was fine if it did not change the classification of the firearm if it was not intended to circumvent SBR laws, and it was allowed to occasionally or sporadically be shouldered, right? So about 2 or 3 years ago, it was really common in pretty much all media involving firearms to see people cheeking their pistol braces or even putting them kind of in their sternum, like you
which
would
sounds
with
like a
body armor.
sex act. I'm sorry.
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
They were cheeking.
Yeah, that's our 18th patch.
Yeah, we need to put out all of these patches eventually. It's gonna happen. I promise.
I have a hell of a Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's going to be our Shark Tank moneymaker for sure, is our patch company.
Yeah.
But it's just terrifying to me because you're right. I only own handguns because it's just convenient and it's the most practical. And I mean, for anything other than very rural, even a 10.5 is going to do you solid. And yeah, I only own handguns. So the fact that overnight in a back office room, some unelected officials can just change me into a felon is terrifying to me. And there's going to be a bunch of snarky comments about how, free men don't bow or kneel and all that kind of stuff, live your life. But these carry startlingly impressive penalties if you are caught. And the new ATF chief that Trump put in is very anti the pistol brace. And it just seems like you were really feeling like this is where it's going because of all the news has been on the Virginia Boogaloo. And this kind of stuff is just slipping in, and he's already Trump's ATF has already done it once with bump stocks, which was a big deal because the Obama administration approved bump stocks, reaffirmed their legality twice, and then Trump pretty efficiently got them banned. These two new things got banned very quickly, and now you're right, you're a felon or you have to chop them up, or luckily Fostech is taking them back and retrofitting them, which is going to be crippling to their finances. But it's, a stand-up patriot thing to do. And the ATF has done this several times with rescinding prior methods of measurement for a firearm's overall length when they have a stabilizing brace. So before, what was popular was to get an 11.5 or a 12.5 because that would put you over the 26 inches and allow you to put vertical foregrips on your pistol without having to register it as an AOW.
Absolutely.
The ATF rescinded that by if it folds, so now no AK can do it because all AK braces fold. And then ARs, if they have a law folder or something similar, like a Deadfoot Arms folder, you have to measure it folded, which makes no sense because it can't be fired folded. It's always a clusterfuck. It makes no sense. And there's really no due process here. So do you want to add to that?
Well, it's two things. First of all, one of the most dangerous things that any government organization can do is declare property that was legally purchased with their written permission. Mm-hmm. The worst thing that they can do is then turn around and declare that property illegal, and not only nullify your investment, but that also, in a fashion, renders our political process null as well.
Right. And they seem to know this because with normal gun confiscation, they call it a quotey fingers gun buyback, and give you your own money back for your legally purchased property. But
fraction.
for some reason, it's great if you bought a bunch of Anderson lowers, but with this, they're just not even. They're just maybe because I think so few people have them that they won't get much pushback. You can tell I'm getting flustered because I'm getting all stuttery about it, but you can tell that not many people must have them because they don't think they're going to get pushback, because overnight, you have to chop it up or you're a felon with legally purchased property. And we can see just philosophically why that would be a problem with trust and with compliance, because they're breaking a contract. It was legally purchased. You can't go back on that contract.
Absolutely. And when the ATF has put out a letter, there should not be any way for them to rescind that letter without Congress voting on it, because that, as you said, that it has become a contract at that point. They have said they have given you a reasonable reason to think that you can freely own this item for as long as you see fit. And also, too, it's if you purchase something, it's your right to sell it. And I want to clarify something about the Reformation. So the Reformations are still legal to have. They're a little bit different than the Fostech. They're still legal to have. You don't have to cut those up, but dealers can no longer sell them. Because they are an unclassifiable variety of weapon, there is no way for it to be sold at this point. And there may also be some concerns with existing Franklin armories being, taken across state lines. I don't know what would happen if you went to sell it to another individual. I don't know how that's going to work.
There's been problems even with pistols, perfectly legal to current opinion letters, pistols with local law enforcement and stuff not being educated enough to know the difference and believing it's an unregistered SBR, and then you have to fight it in court, and there's this whole big battle. So, If you have a Franklin Armory, you're right. I misspoke there, and I just watched the Mac video, so I should have remembered that. But if you are traveling with a Franklin Armory or taking it to the range or whatever, you have to be ready for the lowest common denominator cop to make your life a living hell for the next 6 months.
Yeah, and in some ways, I think that the system is engineered that way. To make it as difficult as possible for us, so that when you're taking it out to the car, you stop and think, do I really want to deal with this today? Is this really a hassle? Is this really a hassle that I want? And it's, I think that having to carry the tax stamp on you is another thing that sort of points to this. It has been made as inconvenient as humanly possible just to take your SBR or can to the range to enjoy your purchase that was kindly granted to you by the ATF.
Papa King.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, we owe your serfs. We have paid our annual dues in grain and apples and blood that we might possess our tubes of metal filled with baffles.
I picture a really eloquent squire with his little horn coming out and addressing the king. So another thing I found that has not been talked about much is after the whole bump stock ordeal back in 2018, it was about a year ago now, if not a little bit over a year, the ATF, they claimed that the NFA, National Firearms Act, and the Gun Control Act, the GCA, the Firearms Technology Industry Services Branch, FTISB, they classify firearms based on their configuration and design. So also, a lot of the ATF classifications for accessories, they're not even going to continue classifying them unless they're currently on a firearm. So a lot of firearms now are coming with SBA 3s and that kind of stuff. If you've previously submitted a sample accessory for classification, the FTISB will be returning your sample without classification. This was back in December.
God, I had forgotten about this. Holy shit.
I hadn't heard much about this and how it affected the industry, but this is just another little cut, in our freedoms being restricted.
So just to be clear, what the situation that this potentially sets up is, let's say you need a new type of grip to be to receive a new type of foregrip or something to receive ATF approval for whatever reason, or a new brace or whatever. Mm-hmm. You are going to every firearm that it might go on is going to potentially, if depending on how this is interpreted, have to be submitted with that installed. So
Precisely.
if you intend for this to go on AKs, AR-15s, and the CZ Scorpion, every configuration of AR-15 and AK and Scorpion that you can think of is going to have to be submitted with your device attached for individual approval.
I have a perfect quote here by Adam Kraut that pretty succinctly summarizes it, and also shows the problem that you and I probably have with it. So thank God for Adam Kraut, because I think he does great work, and also for Military Arms Channel, because he brings this information to a lot of people that otherwise would not have any idea.
Bless
so
you,
here's
Tim.
A quote. Yeah, Tim, Indiana. He's so close to me. Copper's so close to me. Anyway, so quotations. This begs an important question that a number of people likely have. If the ATF determines that the accessory alters the classification of the firearm, say turns a pistol into an SBR or an AOW, how will that person or company be subject to criminal charges? In the past, when an item altered a firearm status, the ATF would return the item if the submitter had the appropriate SOT that would allow them to manufacture NFA firearms. If the person did not, ATF would not return the accessory. To date, the author has not seen any cases where someone was prosecuted as a result of such a classification. Given this administration's push for a ban on bump stocks, the timing of this change is curious. So I think that
agree.
really shows that this is, for the last year or so, pretty much under the radar, because everyone flipped their lids about the bump stocks, and now everyone's losing it about the Boogaloo in Virginia. This has been very slowly and very methodically going on under Trump's administration. So we just wanted to point that out.
Trump is the president least friendly to the Second Amendment since Bill Clinton. It's an astonishing thing to say, but it is absolutely true. And I don't know how this has happened. I feel that the gun community has not done a good job of holding Trump accountable for these various issues. I think that there initially was some measure of sort of shame that these things were happening, and I think the general consensus was that it'll get better. He's just doing this to, for public polling numbers or whatever, but it's gone past the point where we can really say that, and we've got to do a better job, as we have done with presidents in the past, as we did with every president before him, as well as we could. We've got to do a better job of holding Trump accountable.
I will push back on that just a little bit, because I would even go farther, back to Reagan. We have not had a single president thus far that has done good things for the Second Amendment.
No, you're right.
It's just restriction after restriction, a little bit more, a little bit more. The only positive we've had in my adult life is the letting the assault weapons ban of 1994 lapse in 2004 under George W. Bush.
You're right.
Other than that, it's been just one more inch my entire growing up. And I think that the problem is, as long as I've been able to legally purchase firearms, we were fighting the Obama administration, writing letters, going to rallies, that kind of thing. And I think it was Military Arms Channel was having a live stream with Just an Opinion, but they were saying how there's something about when there's a D in the White House, which could also be a patch. When there's a D in the White House, the more liberty-minded, I will say, because it's not even a Republican-Democrat thing anymore, but the more freedom-loving, Constitution-loving Americans push back real hard. And then when there's an R in the White House, we're just like, well, lesser of two evils. The problem is, I will quote the recent Netflix show The Witcher, because we've been talking a lot about The Witcher video games recently. When Geralt is confronted with a situation in which he finds he has to choose between evil, the lesser of two evils, everyone's trying to get him to choose the lesser of two evils. He says, if the choice is between the lesser of two evils, I would choose not to choose. Kind of like that old Rush song, even if you choose not to make a choice, you still have made a choice. I forget what it is. But we've always pushed back on Democrats when they get a little bit tyrannical. But for some reason, when a Republican gets tyrannical, we're like, oh, well, they're playing 4D underwater chess, and we'll just let them have their bump stocks. Who really cares anyway? What good's a bump stock? And now we have this.
And something I'd like to point out is that this is the letter writing and protesting and calls absolutely did matter when
Yes, it did.
when the Obama administration was in the White House. I know because even though I voted for Obama both times, I was one of the people writing letters and calling to make my opinions known, and it absolutely mattered. Just because you generally support someone, I'm not the biggest Obama fan in the world. He made lots of mistakes, but of the options available at the time, that was what worked best for me. And just because you voted someone in office doesn't mean that you have to stand behind every single thing that they do. It is completely okay to take them to task for the things that they screw up. And it's your duty to take them to task for that. Let them know. Yeah.
It's almost like you have principled stances on things.
Absolutely. It's almost like I have strong opinions and care about seeing those stay law. It's a strange phenomenon. But
well, you can find the information even in mainstream what some of my friends would call fake news. If you go to ABC, CNN, anything like that, you can find these types of articles. You can also find them in more gun-centric places like The Truth About Guns. And I have an article here from Ammo Land. I have an article here from, it doesn't matter. This one's from Adam Kraut from somewhere. You can also go to law websites like princelaw.com. You can also go to the ATF's website themselves and read the letters for yourselves. Hopefully this little segment, don't take our word for it. Hopefully this was a good primer on what to look for, and look for yourself. And, we need to start to band together and get some of this stuff nipped in the bud before it gets to the point that America is Virginia.
Yeah, we're also concerned about Virginia, as we damn well should be. It's a terrifying situation, and I live in the South. I'm especially concerned about that situation because we, unfortunately, in the South, we do say it won't happen here. Well, it is, everybody. But at the same time, we can't. We can't have all of our attention on Virginia. Meanwhile, the ATF does whatever it wants. We've got to keep our. I was about to make a terrible Lord of the Rings metaphor, which I'm going to avoid doing. But I opened my mouth to say it and was like, not going to go that route. But anyway, we've got to keep our eyes on on all of the various threats at the same time.
I want to hear your metaphor.
Okay, well, all right. Just we were talking about the Witcher, so I was gonna say, it's a bit like when the various armies are trying to keep Sauron busy so that the Frodo and Sam can slip by to throw the ring in Mountain. And I feel like that's what the ATF is doing. They're trying to throw all of the AR-15 lowers into all of the registered seers into Mount Doom while none of us are paying attention because we're so busy fighting the bigger battle in Virginia.
Connectors you bought on Wish.com.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You can buy anything on Wish these days. Which, by the way, that's just the dumbest thing that I can possibly think of to purchase parts that would make your gun a machine gun from an overseas manufacturer and have it pass through customs. You were an idiot.
It's so easy to track. Oh my gosh, it gives me anxiety just thinking about it. I just don't understand people, but
it's so stupid. It's so
YOLO.
stupid. Yeah, I guess you only go to jail once.
Well, or a lot. Recidivism.
Or a lot. That's right.
Since our movie segment did so well on the last podcast, I do want to bring up some with your fantastic Lord of the Rings reference, which was very current because of what is an Amazon Prime remaking Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, they're doing a series.
I want to say that my favorite line from the books and the movies, I'm not sure if it's in the books, I haven't read them in a long time, but is when Sam's offering to carry the ring up that last little bit, and Frodo's like, you can't carry the ring. He's like, I know I can't carry the ring for you, but I can carry you. And he carries him up. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it gets my heart every time.
It's so. Great.
I think that's a wrap for this one. We got all the Revolver stuff. It's a great intro. We'll be talking about more Revolvers in the future, obviously. And then we have the ATF stuff, which is urgent and needs to be looked into. I think that was pretty good. Do you have any pop culture you want to talk about, or do you want to be done?
Well,
I got my Witcher in.
The only thing I want to say is do support the good citizens of Virginia. It's become more and more obvious that they don't want this, and we don't want it for them. So do everything that you can to support them. We didn't discuss it at length, not because we don't think it's important, but because we think that other sources have covered that better than we can. Whereas the various ATF rulings, that's not been as widely discussed as it should have been. So that's why we're bringing that up. But don't forget about Virginia either. We need to make sure that our attention is firmly split between these two problems.
Yeah, we didn't mean for this to sound like we were prioritizing one or the other. It's just every channel, every podcast, every Instagram big account, they've all said their piece on Virginia, and we didn't really feel like we could add that much to it. But this is, as Zach said, kind of slipped under the radar. And it's not at all about priorities. It's just we thought this was also important to note. And also, I don't know if you do any giving, but I've become a really big fan of the Firearm Policy Coalition recently. And then, of course, the GOA I'm a huge fan of. So now would be a good time. I don't know I know there's specific to Virginia groups out there, but this might be a good time, around the new year. Maybe, send them $20 or $50 if you don't normally. That money can go a long way to even just hiring out buses to get people to, because that's a big way that the anti-gun, Every Mom and Bloomberg and stuff, they will hire shuttles and buses just to bring bodies to the rallies. And a big thing is the cost of parking and taking the day off and getting to the place. So even if it's just $20, that money could be put to great effect, even if you can't personally go to anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the last thing we've absolutely got to talk about is we should talk about the Witcher show just a little bit, because we've both been enjoying. I'm on the last episode right now.
Snap!
Yeah. So what have you thought overall?
Just a brief primer on my history with The Witcher. I knew nothing of it until I thought it was like a Game of Thrones ripoff until I played The Witcher 3, and I played that for hundreds of hours, too many hours, and read all the books, read the comic books, big fan. So I was very, very worried about the show, and it's good. It's not great, it's not amazing, but it's good. It's a fantastic first step. Yeah. I cannot wait till 2021. Me and you both had some issues with the casting, but I think that's due to our adoration of the games.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
The author hates the games, from what I've read. So I could see some casting choices, like Triss in particular, being middle finger to the games. But overall, the pacing is weird because they decided to fudge with the timelines a little bit, which I personally like, that Pulp Fiction style of storytelling.
Yeah, I enjoyed
Reservoir
that.
Dogs.
Yeah.
But we know a lot about the story, so I was like, oh, interesting, this story. Where, like, my wife, my brother, they were fucking lost for, like, that whole show. And then it was, like, the 8th episode, they're like, oh, wow, it all comes together. So if you don't know a lot about it, or if it's brand new to you, it's 8 episodes. Watch all 8 episodes. By the end, it will make sense. And they've kind of gotten to the point now where going forward, it should be a linear timeline. But I liked it. I thought the monster effects were good. Geralt is perfect. We both agree most of the main characters should be a little bit older. But
yeah, that has really bothered me. Well, the age of the main characters I found extremely jarring at first. Like I really did, because
they're all like kids.
Yeah, I know. It is. I was especially bothered by Geralt and Yennefer. I just really. I mean, the actress who plays Yennefer is like 23. Yeah. And there's the one scene where she's talking about, spending decades at the court of Aedirn, and I'm like, you're 23.
The queen, especially, as well, in Sintra. There was like
Calanthe,
2 decades. Yeah, there was like 2 decades that passed, and she looked the same, which was very jarring. So
yeah, and I understand it if you're a crazy wizard, maybe you got your magic that keeps you from getting old, but for the rest of them, it's very strange. And also, I do wish that Geralt were slightly more grizzled. He's supposed to be just like this scarred, grizzled, mangled guy who's lived through these terrible things.
He's a witcher.
No. Yeah, and it's a very strange. Also, you mentioned the pacing, as you did. I enjoyed the timeline split because I knew what was going on. I watched this with someone else, and she was like, "What the fuck's even going on right now? Right. Like, I don't even know what we're watching." And the other thing
The jarring, let me interrupt for a second. The jarring thing about the timeline jumping is that they don't age.
Yes.
So if they aged, it would be less of a problem. I'm guessing. What do you think? Because
I totally agree.
The queen should have aged. At one point, they're talking about her being a grandma, and I'm like, wait, what? You look exactly the same as when that one. I don't want to give any spoilers. But
yeah.
She just looks exactly the same through the whole thing. So I feel like most people, it's not even really the storytelling or the writing. The acting is all great. It's just the time jumping doesn't work because people don't age.
Yeah, it's very strange. Something that did a time jump really well. The game Uncharted 4. There are actually different character models, sort of showing showing the characters' ages, and you can kind of pinpoint when it is just by what they're wearing and how they're the wear on their faces and their hair color and stuff. But it's impossible in the Witcher. You mentioned the pacing. My only real complaint with the storytelling is that everything is incredibly rushed, and the game suffers from that too. It absolutely suffers from the same problem in places. Some of my favorite stories in the game are just the game sprints through them.
Yeah.
But it's sort of the same problem with season 7 of Game of Thrones, and for some people season 8 as well, where a few stories just they could have had 3 times the screen time and it would have been fine. 8 episodes was not necessarily enough time to tell some of these stories. What do you think about that?
Oh, no, I 100% agree with you. I think that Game of Thrones was more noticeably affected by it.
Yeah.
The Witcher has always kind of been like a gritty fairy tale, and it moves at fairy tale pacing, and a lot of it is inferred through other source material. So, like, you build out the characters by having 200 hours of gameplay and reading the books, and so even though on screen it's kind of sparse, it doesn't feel that way to me. But I could totally see how that would be an argument. And you're right. Each episode is a short story from the short story collections, as well as something currently happening. So they jump in time because the storylines relate to each other. And each one of those short stories, you and I were talking about the Renfrey storyline. That could have been half the season.
Absolutely, and should have been. I mean, I remember as that episode started to wind down. I was thinking, surely this isn't the way this is going to go. And
what's so frustrating is it started off super strong because that was one of the best fights, I thought, and that was also one of the best. I would argue the best side character. I thought she was great, and I thought the whole mage side was great, and that was a missed opportunity in my opinion. But I see why they did it.
Yeah, I also think that stretching this out as well, maybe even over a few seasons would have allowed the actors even to age. Specifically, the actress who plays Yennefer, she needs a few years on her, just a few years of living.
The person who's adapting it in the game, she's somewhere like mid-30s with Geralt as well. Maybe Geralt's like mid-40s, and I think that works better as well. In the show, she's like sold off while she's still living with her parents, so I'm not sure how old she is. But the actress is 23, so I'm guessing she's around that, and she just feels too young for her character. But again, that's because we know her character. I've been seeing nothing but praise about the actor's performance and everything, and I thought it was great.
Oh, I agree. Her performance is fantastic.
The showrunner is saying that she has 7 seasons, at least 7 seasons. So it's doing super well. We're not getting the next one till 2021. So if it keeps up that pace, we very well may get older actors in some of the roles.
I hope so. And and the other problem, this is almost getting into spoilers, so I'm gonna express this very delicately. But some of the characters who come and go needed more time for their arcs to be realized.
Yes.
And
I know who you're talking about, and I agree.
And it's just there was not enough time spent. 2 episodes is not enough time to develop an arc, especially when you're telling multiple stories in one 1 hour block. So
right, there's not a protagonist. There's 3 protagonists, and each one of them has a separate arc.
Absolutely. And by the way, as much as I don't like the casting of Triss, that's the only one that I flat out do not like or understand. I just don't get it. I don't get it either. It's very strange. But I love Ciri. She's a fantastic character, and the way she's played and written, just really great.
Yeah, she looks the part. I struggle with child actors, finding them believable, and she was good. I didn't find her druid storyline all that interesting. But I'm very curious to see where it goes. And if it's anything like the books or the games, she is going to be a very interesting character probably next season.
Yeah, I hope it. I hope that she follows sort of the arc that we are as fans of the series are expecting her to follow. I really hope that it takes that course. Yeah, I'm glad we're both enjoying it. And this was I was just watching the trailers and reading everything about it in the lead up to the series coming out. I was incredibly worried. I thought it was going to absolutely suck.
I was very worried as well until I saw Henry Cavill. I feel like he really based his character on the games because he's a big fan. And I don't know if you saw the viral clip going around a little bit ago, but someone asked him whether he preferred Xbox or PlayStation, and he just smiles and says PC. So like the PC Master Race people were all going, ape crap. And he's a big fan of World of Warcraft and fantasy games and stuff like that. So a lot of his mannerisms and like grunts and the, oh, well, fuck things straight from the games.
Yeah.
So once I started seeing the behind the scenes, I felt a little bit better, but I don't understand when people are like, oh, it ruined it for me. It's like if the show sucks, I still have the game, I still have the books, it wouldn't have bothered me. But I'm happy to say I'm excited for season 2, and I think we both pretty strongly recommend giving it a try since it's free on Netflix.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the best thing that I know of that you could just pick up and watch a whole season of right this second. I mean, the Mandalorian was great, but it was not as consistently excellent as The Witcher. The Mandalorian does have some. It's great, but part of the reason that it's great is because
everything else is so bad.
Yeah, everything else is so terrible. It is in contrast just a breath of fresh air.
Is it done now?
I think so. Yeah, I think there were only 8 episodes.
I was waiting for it to be done so I could do the free week or whatever of Disney Plus. Because there's nothing else on Disney Plus I want to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it is good. I won't go into any more details, and we'll talk about that when you're done with it. But it has incredibly high highs, and a lot of just that was a decently well written episode. But some of them are damn good TV.
I will say
good TV.
The Mandalorian's like 20 minutes on average per episode. The longest one's like 40.
Yeah, between 20
The Witcher's almost
21
a
and
solid
40.
hour per episode, so that helps with it as well. It still feels rushed, but at least they're not the truncated episodes.
Yeah, and one part of the problem with The Mandalorian is that it is written to cater to a child's attention span, while The Witcher is certainly not.
Is it too intense for like a 7-year-old?
I don't think so. I mean, there are a few moments that will probably be a little too intense, but I think
no worse than like the movies, though, right?
No. I mean, in fact, I would consider it overall. It's probably a little milder than the newer movies.
Yeah, we'll watch that and I'll get back to you within the week because I've been looking forward to finally jumping into it. But yeah, I'll watch it with the kiddos.
Well, thank you all so much for listening. We talked about Revolvers, we chastised the ATF, and we got to talk about The Witcher, which is an awesome, awesome show.
Right, so we recommend Revolvers, give them a go. We do not recommend the ATF. We should probably abolish it. And we very much recommend The Witcher if you're into fantasy type stuff. If you've been, looking to get that bad Game of Thrones season 7 or 8 taste out of your mouth, give The Witcher a go. It's really fun. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit less serious, but very fun. And I always have a huge pleasure talking to Zach publicly, obviously. We talk a lot privately, but this is always good fun. We will be doing more consistent podcasts, and I look forward to chatting kind of digitally in front of you all very shortly. So see you soon. Talk to you soon. Be safe out there.